Today's podcast is sponsored by lighthousepowerbusiness.com.
June 8th, Adoniram Judson. A sacrifice now can yield success for eternity. In Burma, Adoniram and Ann Judson faced unrelenting heat, lousy food, and a population who worshipped idols. Pigs and dogs fought over the trash in the streets. Worse, the missionaries were often sick, and their 2 children died. But after 6 hard years, Won Now became the first convert. 2 more soon followed. The Burmese church was born, and the first ever prayer meeting was held in November. But 5 years later, war broke out with the British, and the emperor accused all English-speaking foreigners of espionage. Officers tied Judson up and threw him into a dark, filthy room. The story of his sufferings, from fever, excruciating heat, hunger, repeated disappointments, and the cruelty of the keepers, is one of the most challenging narratives in the history of missions. For almost 2 years, he was incarcerated in a prison too vile to house animals. Judson asked God, "Spare me long enough to put thy saving word into the hands of a perishing people." He survived because early in his confinement, Anne, once again pregnant, sneaked him food. With great courage, she also kept his Bible translation work safe by sewing it into a pillow, and she took it to him. By the time Judson was released, the church had been destroyed. Anne and the baby she birthed were ill and soon died. The loss devastated Judson, and it took him a long time to recover. He lived over a year in a retreat in the woods, mourning his wife and child. He even dug his own grave and sat beside it. Later he said, "If I had not felt certain that every additional trial was ordered by infinite love and mercy, I could not have survived my accumulated suffering." Judson's story reflects the words of the Apostle Peter. "After you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace, who has called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you." 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 10. By 1837, Judson had completed the Burmese Bible, and there were 1,144 baptized converts. In 1880, there were 7,000 Burmese Christians, 63 churches, a publishing house, and multiple schools. "There is no success without sacrifice," Judson once said. "If you succeed without sacrifice, it is because someone has suffered before you. If you sacrifice without success, it is because someone will succeed after." What do you care enough about to sacrifice for? A sacrifice now can yield success for eternity.
Hello friends, today is June the 8th and our story is about Adoniram Judson. My name is Blake Maddox. I'm the Executive Director of 365 Christian Men, and today's challenge is issued from the perspective of a man who gave up everything to go to a people who had not been reached with the gospel. Little did he know what it would cost him to go, and often that's so true in our lives, men. We don't know the cost. We don't know what it's going to take to go and do what God's called us to do, but yet in obedience and with a passion to pursue Christ, we go. In the story of this case and this man, tragedy surrounded him. He lost his wife and his daughter, and the story even tells us that he grieved for a year, even digging his own grave. I can't even imagine, but he dug his own grave. The legacy of Judson is this. Centuries later, there are people serving the Lord in Burma because this man was willing to go and do what God called him to do. You know, for us, we may not be sent to Burma. We may not be called out of our country. We may not even be called out of the state that we live in. But yet there is a call And there is a yes in response to that call to say, God, I will go and I will do what you've called me to do. It may cost us more than we're willing to sacrifice, but yet there's not a greater place to be than in the perfect will of God. So my challenge for us today is, as we pursue God and as we seek God, will we step out and say yes to the call of God, whatever that looks like, and trust that God's grace will be sufficient to prop us up and help us walk through whatever it is that we need to experience. Keep in mind that God will use your obedience to accomplish His will. God bless you. Have a great day.
Today's podcast is sponsored by lighthousepowerbusiness.com. Get your free strategy session valued at $1,000. Get expert advice and take your business to the next level. Visit lighthousepowerbusiness.com to schedule your session today.